This week on London Real, we have the former chief evangelist of Apple and social media expert, Guy Kawasaki.
I'm not a big consumer of social media. I'm a producer of social media.
Right.
I don't think my high school English teacher would think I wrote 13 books in my career. Maybe you have writer's block because you don't have a damn thing to say. So then shut up. Empower people. That's what I do. The ultimate bottom line is, positioning, branding, powerful marketing platform, and you get that not by self-promotion. A book is an end in itself. It's not a means to an end. So I take a picture of whale sushi, okay? People are freaking out. You should curate because it is too damn hard to create. Pushing out product through your social media is not necessarily the ultimate bottom line. Are you thinking short term or long term? I'm convinced now that it's better to be lucky than smart.
London Real presents Guy Kawasaki, The Art of Social Media.
But when you get to be 60, you'll understand that you just don't give a shit.
Welcome back to London Real. I am here near the walled city of London, and check out what I got for you today. It is the old Roman walls that separated the city. Funny enough, I'm at a place called Bishopsgate, which was obviously one of the gates, and around here is also where they used to bury their dead bodies. So there you see a dead body, just a fake dead body there. But it just goes to show all the history that's literally under our feet here in this fabulous town. This week on the show, we have Mr. Guy Kawasaki. Guy is a fascinating guy indeed. Constantly speaks his mind, a laid-back dude of Hawaiian origin, and he was the chief evangelist for Apple from 83 to 87. He worked directly with Steve Jobs. He's got war stories about the Mac division, which was like a separate think tank that wasn't even making money when the rest of Apple was cranking out the Apple II Pluses and those kind of machines. And so he has fascinating stories about what it's like to work for Steve Jobs, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He's also a social media expert, and so he was on to talk about his new book, The Art of Social Media, and he's got a lot of smart things to say. I really like this book. I sped through it before he came over, and I learned a lot of things. Some things we're doing right on London Real, and some things we need to do more of. And so Guy's very smart. First thing he did was ask me how many YouTube subscribers we have, which is a great metric to try to find out who's the real deal and who's not. So we're around 80K right now, trying to get to 1 million by the end of the year, and we're working on that. But Guy was fantastic, really frank. At one point you can see in the trailer, he just, was talking about what it's like to be a 60-year-old man, and it's really nice to get someone who's so prominent, who's speaks at like 50, 70 events around the world, but who's also just straight up cool and really laid back, kind of the essence of kind of an American, especially from the West Coast like me, or even as far away as Hawaii. So we got a special treat. He signed 5 copies of his book, The Art of Social Media, when he was in my studio, and we're going to be posting those to you, to whoever tweets me the best quote of the episode. So type that out, and I think the hashtag is Kawasaki quotes, I think is what it is. And so type that out, and we're going to send you a copy of that signed book by Guy from Penguin Publishers. It's only going to apply to you people in the UK because we can't pay for all that crazy postage. For that Tim Ferriss episode, I sent some dude in Brazil a book, and I nearly broke the bank. So just people in the UK, but you can tweet me quotes anyways. There's some great ones from this show, and so kind of that's our giveaway to give something back to you guys and to promote Guy. So I hope you enjoy this as usual, and as Guy told me on the show, if you enjoy this, the best thing you can do for me is not only like it, I appreciate it, but it's also to share it. Share it with your Facebook friends, share it on Twitter, that kind of thing. And that really, I guess that kind of vouches for us and shows your friends that our content is valuable. So thanks for that. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this show. I got some big news coming up, and I know I've been alluding to it a bit on certain shows, but I am heading to Los Angeles for next week, and I'm going to be going to see Mr. Tai Lopez. He's got a fantastic 2-day event that he's putting on that's going to be talking about how to get 1 million customers, and it's going to be his 10 tools on how you can start a multi-million-dollar business. And I'm a big fan of Tai Lopez. We got his second episode for London Real coming up, and at this conference it'll be in Los Angeles, and I hope you join me. There's a link down here below so you can come along. The price is ultra cheap. I think for 2-day conference it's under $100 or whatever pounds, wherever area you are. So it's really about the get together, and it's going to be like 8 hours a day. He's going to have some big hitters there. His mentor, Joe Salatin, Oren Clough of Pitch Anything, who's been on my show as well. And it's just going to be a great meeting of the minds. It's at the Roosevelt Hotel, all class, as Tai would always do it. So come join me. I'm flying out to LA for this conference, and Tai and I will be announcing a partnership that we are forming that's going to be everything that you've been asking me for, which is really something more than just the shows, which is a place where you can find people that are thinking just like you, that want to take themselves to the next level, premium content, all sorts of other things that we've been talking about. So we'll be announcing that next week. I'm very excited, and so more to come. But please, if you're in the LA area, or maybe if you're even in San Diego or San Francisco, fly in for the weekend and come and see me, hang out, meet Tai, meet his mentors, meet Oren. It's going to be fantastic. So make it happen. I'm excited to going back to Cali and to go back to my roots. It's going to be a fantastic time. So check me out there, and it's going to be a very, very good time. I'm cruising through Spitalfields Market. I hope they don't kick me out of this place. Sometimes security's hawking me, so we'll see if I can stay with you. But I just want to give a shout out to the people that make this podcast happen. I just shot an episode in my kitchen making bulletproof coffee, so you can see how I do it. But if you're not familiar, it's the guys that have been longtime sponsors, and they make the coffee that's free of molds and toxins, mix it up with grass-fed butter and the brain octane oil. I just served some last night to my man Matthew Pritchard from Dirty Sanchez, and he had a sip. He didn't do anything crazy with it, and he loved it. Of course he did. So get your bulletproof on. The bulletproof diet is out. I got copies in my studio that I give out to people, and there you go. So that's kind of what happens there. I think I got some heat coming up here, and so that's what's happening with Bulletproof. And I just want to also give a big thanks out to the boys at Squarespace. And if you're not familiar with them, they are an all-in-one platform for making your website or online portfolio. And these guys make everything look fantastic. They make our site look amazing, where you can go to our episodes page and find out all the pictures of everyone on the show that looks good. And my better half, the woman that keeps me in line, she just started her own food blog on there called mygourmetjournal.com, and that's all done with Squarespace. And she's doing it and dropping in photos and everything, and it looks fabulous. She did her logo on there with the logo creator, so it's dope, and you can go on and try it for free without a credit card. So go to squarespace.com. You can use the code London and get 10% off if you want to buy. And I just always tell people, go into Squarespace and you can have a great looking site. With the new Squarespace 7, you can choose from like 16 different versions of how you want it to look, whether you're a restaurant or a food blog or something. So I chose kind of one for her, and it's looking great. She's got episodes up there of some of the food that I get to eat. So, big love going out there for that. And that's it. I've been tweeting out some of the videos from Guthrie Castle, from the man Dan Pena, the $50 billion man. And I must say, I'm getting a little nostalgic. I kind of miss that week I spent up there in October of Dan hammering away, and you can see all the guys in suits. And yeah, Dan has stepped up his video game big, as expected. If you want to learn something from Dan is a lot like Tai in that standpoint, is that they take what works and they double down, triple down on the investment, and they invest in themselves. And so Dan did that in a big way with his video, and it looks great. And those guys look like they're having fun up there and getting beaten like rented mules. So there you go. I've been sending out more of those videos. And yeah, big love to those guys at the castle. I hope you finish off with a great week wearing your kilts and all that. So there you go. I'm going to wind this up, and now I'm going to leave you with the one and only Mr. Guy Kawasaki, the king, the evangelist of social media. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Guy Kawasaki, who is the chief evangelist for Canva, an online graphic design tool. Formerly, you were an advisor to the Motorola business unit of Google and chief evangelist of Apple, reporting to Steve Jobs. You are the author of The Art of Social Media, which is this book here. We'll be talking about this very soon. The Art of the Start, Ape, author, publisher, entrepreneur, Enchantment, and 9 other books. This man is prolific. You have a BA from Stanford and an MBA from UCLA, as well as an honorary doctorate from Babson College. Guy, welcome to London Real.
Thank you. That's me in a nutshell.
That's you, right? It's good to have a concise bio.
Yeah,
you know, right?
That's concise.
That's pretty concise. It could go more than that. What is, when you think of London, when you're back in San Francisco or traveling around, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Wagamama.
Wagamama, yeah, okay.
I love Wagamama. Good, fast, and cheap. I wish software was like that.
I think that was probably one of the earlier adopters of good fast food here in London. You know, fast food, yeah, it's probably the wrong way to call it fast food because it is quality food, right? And when you think of London, do you think of startups and do you think of tech, or has that opinion changed over the years?
When I think of London,
you can give it to us straight. I know you like to give it to people straight.
When I think of London, I lived here for about 6 weeks in the middle of the dot-com days.
Oh, okay. So 99, 2000, something like that?
Yeah, around there.
Okay.
And I loved it.
You did?
We had a flat in the Mayfair area, and I love Grosvenor House.
Oh, yeah.
I just love London. I love Harrods. I love was it Selfridges? Is that what it's called?
Selfridges, yeah.
I could move here.
You could. Yeah, I mean, they say it has a kind of a feel like San Francisco, and maybe a weather like San Francisco. Did we have a dot-com boom here? There was a few big companies that were kind of happening. Boo.com.
Boo, yeah.
Boo. Man, that was I remember they put a lot of money into that one, didn't they? Was that Scandi? Scandi inspired, maybe?
I think so.
I think so,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and what were you doing here for that?
Well, theoretically, Garage.com, which is the company I had back then, we were going to have an office here. And so we were recruiting and building a conference and, all that kind of stuff. It was the worldwide domination plan.
Okay. And so that was 6 weeks.
Didn't we all have one of those worldwide domination plans?
No, I know. We definitely did. And what about, I mean, we've come a long way on the curve. You're actually near the quote-unquote Silicon Roundabout here in London. And this is actually the heart of tech because it used to be kind of cheap office space.
Yeah.
And I have another show called Silicon Reel, and we talk about, the tech startup scene here. And London is finally getting a little bit of respect globally for a lot of things like fintech, since the banking area is right next to this kind of tech area. But I mean, in general, when you think of London and tech, do those go together, or is that changing?
I think it's changing. I can't tell you it's synonymous.
Right. Okay.
That would be a lie. But I think it's changing, and partially it's a general change that I don't think people think that Silicon Valley has a monopoly on brains and ideas anymore. Or maybe they never did, but I don't think it's true that it's a double negative. I don't think it's true that all the brains and all the ideas come out of Silicon Valley. Because the world is flat, and your team could be anywhere. You could be doing, the sun could never set on your 5-person startup. You don't have to have a 50,000-person startup for that to be true anymore.
Right. And what about social media? Do you think we are at the same level as the U.S.? Do you think we lag a couple years over here? I mean, I'm talking about Europe as well. I mean, UK is one of the most connected countries. I think we have a higher speed. I think there's more e-commerce per capita in this country. But I don't know if we're up the curve or if we need to read this book.
It's hard to judge because,
it is, right?
Well, I'll tell you, Cadbury does a very good job. So Cadbury's here, right?
Yeah.
I hope. And it's hard to judge. Well, there's several reasons. One very practical reason is I'm not a big consumer of social media. I'm a producer of social media. Right. So I can't tell you I follow these 1,000 people or sites and companies, and I see every tweet and every post. It's just not true. I'm so busy pushing out my own stuff that I'm not there sitting looking for interesting stuff.
And that's
curation.
true.
Curation is a big deal. I mean, it's a lot of work.
And that's part of the book. I want to jump into that. And you have 125,000 tweets, and you mentioned this in the book about the average number to do. And it's funny because I was reading the book today, and you said if you don't get some blowback, as in some complaints, something's wrong.
Yes.
And I try to tell my guys that, and they're like, Brian, they're complaining. I'm like, it's 3 people.
Yeah.
And for you say, look at the big picture, and if you're getting lots of shares and everything like that.
Well, at some level, it's math, right? So I typically send out my tweets 3 times, 8 hours apart. Not all of them, but many of them.
Right. So the same tweet 3 times.
Yeah, and you know, we've used Bitly or unique links or whatever, and we looked, and basically we get 3x the engagement if you tweet out 3 times. What a concept, right? I mean, there's a reason that CNN and ESPN and all those places that they keep running the same clip. And it's not because they're stupid, and it's not because they don't have other things to run. Well, maybe it's that, but it's because someone who's watching the highlights of the 2015 NBA All-Star game at 8 a.m. is not going to TiVo it in case he doesn't watch at 8 a.m. I mean, so you got to keep running it because people are up at different times, and even if they're all up, even if they're all on the West Coast, they all got up at 7 a.m. Some people check the internet at the end of the day, some in the middle of the day, some beginning of the day. So you've got to do that. And then let's say when you triplicate your tweets, some people are going to say, well, you're a spammer. You did this 3 times. And it's like, I got to tell you something, man. If somebody who follows you notices you did something 3 times in 24 hours, it says more about that person than you, because that person doesn't have a life. I mean, how is it possible that you could notice that I did something 3 times, 24 hours apart? That's insane.
This is refreshing to hear from me. Because also, I always say you need to follow more people on Twitter. Because if I am one of the only feeds that's coming up, then...
Exactly.
Or you need to do something else.
I said that too. I said, okay, so, you go to Best Buy, or I don't know, whatever, you go to here.
Yeah, Argos.
Okay, and you buy a TV, right? And you take it home, and you don't put in cable or satellite. So it's only whatever's over the air. And you can only get 3 stations over the air. And one of them is like 24-hour shopping network. So you turn the TV on, and 1 out of 3 times it's the home shopping network thing, right? And then you get all pissed off because, my God, every time I turn it on, somebody's selling me a tourmaline necklace or, earrings or, a new kind of blender or a new kind of knife. And I'm so sick of that. It's just spamming me. It's like, well, why don't you get cable, asshole, and get in 100 more channels? Maybe it would be more interesting. Whose fault is that? So
that's a good analogy, because people, I think they come from that reference of, I expect content to be created for me and customized to me.
Well, that's called the attitude that, my time is valuable, and you should do something that's perfect for me because my time is so valuable, right? It's like this sense of entitlement that, how dare you? I did a thing yesterday where through a company I offered PDFs of 4 of my books, right? So basically 25% of my books I gave away for free. And this guy says, but that company asked so much personal information, how dare you ask for personal? Like, okay, so, if you don't want the 4 free books, don't freaking fill out the thing. I mean, what do you want from my life?
I like that. There's a limit. So you want to engage with social media, but you don't want to take it too far.
No, well, when you say take it too far, you mean bend over, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what
I don't bend over on social media.
You mentioned your writing there. How do you write so much? I mean, you're very prolific. Do you have a routine? When you go to create a book, do you shut yourself down from everyone?
Yeah.
Or are you constantly creating? Because some people hate writing books. I know Tim Ferriss, people are like, when's your next 4-hour book? And he's like, I become a horrible hermit when I'm writing a book. I don't talk to anybody. Is that the way you are?
No, I don't have that luxury, because if I'm chief evangelist of Canva, or I make 50 to 75 speeches a year, so it's not like I can go, into some Tibetan monastery and just write all day and be a vegan or whatever. I don't know. I have 4 kids. My kids don't care if I'm writing a book or not. They just, they got to go to school. They got to get picked up.
They're not impressed with you, and they
got to
don't
go
care.
to soccer. Yeah, they don't give a shit. And so that's not my reality. Listen, I've written 13 books, and every one of them is hard because, first of all, I tell myself, don't try to answer every email, but I just can't. I just so tempted to try to answer every email. And so I'm trying to answer every email, and like, I'm one of these kind of people that, I really can't start writing until everything else is done.
Okay.
Have you ever been that? So like, you get up in the morning and say, today I'm gonna put everything aside, I'm gonna write all day, right? I say, but let me check my email. Let me check Twitter. Let me check Google Plus. Next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock, right? And I have actually used applications that you can tell it, lock me out of this domain for the next X hours. So I put Twitter on there, Facebook on there, Google Plus. So now I cannot use those services.
Does that work for you, or do you find another way?
Well, and so what it does is you cannot use those services, but obviously they have to have an override, right? So you have to reboot your computer.
Okay.
Right. So the long and the short of it is, thank God that I can write really fast, because I am not writing efficiently. And I have to say, like, you know who David Allen is?
Yeah,
GTD guy?
Yeah.
If he looked at my habits, like, I'm doing everything ass backwards, right? So the stuff that I make the most money, I put the least effort. So I make probably the most money speaking.
Right.
Do you think I spend 5 hours preparing every speech, rehearsing every speech and all that? No, like, I get off the plane, in the car on the way to the speech, I'm looking at it and like, boom.
Let's talk about your speaking. You are a very good speaker. I watched your TEDx talk in Berkeley. Yeah. It was very entertaining. And so you're very good at speaking, but with the tech audience, that means you're 10 times better than the tech guys, because,
How hard could that be?
Because I know. Because to quote you, you say most high-tech speakers suck.
Yes.
So when they see you, you're just like a giant. How did that work?
The valley of blind people, or whatever, the one-eyed giant who's king, or whatever that saying is.
You're the one-eyed guy. Yeah. I mean, was that always a skill you had when you were evangelist at Apple? Were you speaking then?
No, quite the contrary. Okay. When I was an evangelist at Apple, it was very intimidating, because you work for arguably the greatest presenter in the history of mankind, right?
Was he good back then too?
Oh yeah. Okay. So it was very intimidating, and you know what? My speaking ability came about sheerly because of volume. I just did it so often; it became second nature. I can't tell you I had these, special coaching sessions, and, I videotaped everything and analyzed and all that. No,
didn't.
It's just tonnage.
Okay.
It's just
tonnage.
It's just tonnage. And now I'm perfectly comfortable.
Yeah, you're ultra comfortable up there.
I really.
And it shows. And it doesn't look like practice. It just looks like, it looks like you don't give a shit. Which
well, that's not necessarily good.
But it's attractive, though, because it's captivating. You're like, all right, well, this guy doesn't need to tell me this, so now I'm going to listen. And the content's not too bad either.
Oh, thank you.
The big one that caught me was make meaning, not money. And I'm surprised I hadn't heard that before, but that was your first one, your Berkeley talk. And I don't know, I'm sure you hear that a lot, but it really resonated with me as far as create the value.
And then you'll make money, right?
You'll make money. And then you furthered it and said, if you really try to go find money, you're only not going to find the money, and you're not going to create value.
Yeah,
right?
And you're going to fail, and you're going to have a bunch of MBAs, right? So,
Right. And so that kind of, I guess that kind of rings through. And your writing, is that something that you've gotten better with as well? I mean, I think your English teacher told you when you were in high school.
Yeah, right. I never make it right now.
And the key to writing is editing. Is that what he told you? Or
I've come to that conclusion.
Okay.
It's like the story you hear, Michael Jordan got cut from his high school basketball team.
Yeah.
So I was cut from the high school English team.
Is that bad?
No. I don't think my high school English teacher would think I wrote 13 books in my career. So writing for me, it really is, I have basically 2 stages. Stage 1 is you vomit it out as fast as you can. Well, actually it's 3 stages. So I start with an outline. I have a very organized mind. So I start with an outline that is very detailed. And then I just vomit out the details into that thing. And then I just buff and edit. So it's kind of, removing the undigested food from the vomit. It's left with nothing but nutrients. It's interesting metaphor.
That is the first time I've heard that for writing.
Yeah, well.
But it sounds about right. I'm trying to picture that.
So that's how I work. I don't know how other writers work. There's these theories of writers that, you sit on this beach with your fountain pen and your parchment, and your kids are all straight A students, and your house is perfectly neat, and the dishes all washed, and now you're gonna write. Like, I don't know, what planet are those people
Doesn't work
on?
that way.
Nobody does that. I don't.
I think it was Neil Strauss that said there is no writer's block. It's just you putting too much importance on what you're writing that day. And so like people get all, I'm writer's block. And he's like, just write.
Well,
write.
that's one of my favorite books is a book called If You Want to Write by Brenda Ullin.
Okay.
And her thing is, don't believe the criticism that you're not trained, you don't have a PhD, you're not educated, whatever. Also, the self-criticism that I can't write. And just if you want to write. Now, I completely agree with that. That book changed my life. But I would add something to that, which is, maybe you have writer's block because you don't have a damn thing to say. So then shut up. I mean,
there's that old saying that everyone has at least one book in them.
I don't think that's true.
But for some people, it should stay there.
Yeah. And it should stay there. Although, I'm a big advocate of self-publishing because you never know, until you get it out. But what I don't like is there are many business people in particular who believe they're going to write a book. And the reason why they want to write a book is they want to position themselves as a thought leader, as an expert, as a guru, so that they can get more speeches and, whatever, right? And I had a meal with an author who did this and was expressing frustration with how hard it was and how few copies he sold. And I said to him, it's because you have bad karma. To me, a book is an end in itself. It's not a means to an end. So when you write a book that the goal is to communicate knowledge, that's when the book is going to do well. But right now you're writing books because you want to say, hey, I'm an expert. I wrote a book, hire me. And that's bullshit. It's bad karma.
And people can smell that energy, right?
Yeah.
They know. They even know on social media posts. They can tell if you're pushing it or if...
Well, especially because those kind of people, right? So let's say the guy's name is Joe Schmo. So he writes a book called The Schmo Way, and it's published by Schmo Press. We're seeing a trend here, right? It's probably not focused on the reader. Duh.
Right. Right. You said that in this book, and we're going to jump into it now, but you said when you're curating, publish the content that they want to read, not what you want them to read.
Which is very different usually.
Yeah.
And usually 180 degrees apart.
Yeah, I just thought about it myself today, and I was like, damn, have I been doing that? Because it's hard sometimes to put yourself in the place of the customer when you're an entrepreneur. You're always thinking about the bottom line, and you're thinking about your investors, and,
Well, I think you can think of your investors and the bottom line and come to the conclusion I did, which is if you want to be successful with social media, the ultimate bottom line is, positioning, branding, powerful marketing platform, and you get that not by self-promotion. So, in a sense, the bottom line can still be your guide. You just have to understand that pushing out product through your social media is not necessarily the ultimate bottom line. That if you take the long view and the big picture, you may decide that promoting less now is better because it allows you to create a platform that you can use later that is going to be more powerful. So ultimately the bottom line does benefit. It's just, are you thinking short term or long term?
Right. And that's what this book is all about, right? The Art of Social Media. It's here. We're actually going to be giving out 5 signed copies of this. And if you tweet us the best quote from the episode, we're going to pick the top 5. You like that? I'm using social media and I'm giving them what they want. Can you talk a bit about this book? Because, you do talk about, some basic stuff like the ideal avatar and profiles. Yeah. And I love your thing about mantra. I want to get into that as well. But can you tell me how you kind of start off the book and what those things are about?
Well, the book is... It's organized by sort of functional areas, right? So, how to set up your profile well. And it's all tips. There's a very, very active and purposeful removal of what I call duhisms, right? Because I've seen many social media books and they say, well, you need to engage people. You need to be honest. You need to be open. And duh. I mean, as opposed to what? Don't engage people, lie to them. So
you
there's
skip
none of
that.
these. Yeah, there's none of these duh-isms in there. And a lot of social media books say you need to have a good profile. So what the hell does that mean? Like, if you gave this book to your mom, or you gave a social media book to your mom who wants to, be better on social media, and then she opens up the book and it says, you need to have a good, effective profile. And she's going to call you up and say, well, okay, I understand that. As opposed to the piece of crap profile I have now, okay, I understand I need a good, effective one. What exactly does that mean? How do I achieve that? So she needs to know, okay, so part of a good, effective profile is a good avatar. Duh. So what's a good avatar? Good avatar is primarily your face, lit from the front, in focus, a big picture, not, you took a group shot and you cropped everybody else out and now it's just your face. So when people click on it, it pixelates out. Mom, okay, this is what and you want it asymmetrical. Why don't you smack dab in the middle?
So no mug shots. That's right. Okay.
So that's what makes a great avatar. These are, look at your avatar. Is it front focus? Is it lit well? Is it, in focus? Is it a big picture? Is it asymmetrical? Are you smiling? That's it. So I can't get any more tactical than that.
Right.
So this book is tactical.
Right. It's very tactical and practical. And then you go on to your profile, which is kind of a slightly more information about you, kind of your big kind of
like your
vanity pick and your profile pick. I mean, look at guys. That's the best thing. If you look at his Twitter picture, there's the back of Richard Branson, and he's talking and engaging with people, and he looks like the man, right? It's that simple, right?
That cover photo, I switch every once in a while, but maybe I'm just hallucinating and imagining it, but I'm trying to tell a story there, right? And I'm not trying to tell a story that I own a Porsche, or I'm not trying to tell a story that I have 4 kids, or I'm a surfer or whatever. That picture there, I hope people say, guy is credible, or at least guy knows Richard Branson, or and even that, it's very subtle, because you see Richard Branson from the back, right? So you kind of need to recognize the hair and all that. I'm not saying
So it's subtle, because if it was a picture of you and Richard like this, the message would be completely different, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Because he poses for 50 of those a day, right?
Yeah,
with
he does
total
a lot
strangers.
of pictures. He does a lot of pictures.
Yeah.
There's even cardboard cutouts of him that I've seen people pose with, and they're making a joke, but then when you look, it's a cardboard cutout.
Yeah. So that's an element of a good profile. So your avatar should convince people that you're likable, trustworthy, and competent. Your avatar. So focus on your face, because people don't get that from your chest, and then that cover photo should tell a story. But the avatar should not tell a story. That's just about your face. The cover photo should tell a story. The story of, so if you are family focused, then that's where you put your family. Not in your avatar, in your cover photo. And, if you're a public speaker, then, like me or an evangelist, I show myself on my knees polishing Richard Branson's shoes. That's a story, right? And that's what's going on there.
Talk to me about mantra. It's something I was thinking about. You mentioned this in your TEDx talk at Berkeley, about company having a mantra that's very different than a couple things. It's very different than their slogan and different from their mission statement. So what is it?
Yeah, so mantra is a 2 or 3 word explanation for why you exist, why your product or your service exists. It's not a mission statement, because mission statements are 40 or 50 words long, and basically they're all interchangeable. Everyone says to return adequate financial benefits to our shareholders while empowering employees to reach their self-actualization goals, while exceeding the expectations of our customers and not killing any dolphins. Right? I mean, that's like every mission statement McKinsey ever wrote. So I think it should be only 2 or 3 words. So some mantras. I think FedEx's mantra should be peace of mind. Because when you absolutely positively want something someplace, it's FedEx.
But that isn't their mantra. That's your version of
that's
their mantra.
mine. That's what I think it should be.
Right.
Wendy's has this long mission statement, and Wendy's mantra should be healthy fast food. Nike has a great slogan, "Just do it." I think it stands for authentic athletic performance. So what's Guy Kawasaki's mantra? Guy Kawasaki's mantra is empower people. That's what I do. My writing, my speaking, my investing, my advising, that's what I do. I empower people. That's what I want on my gravestone. So in 2 words, I can sum up my life.
Right. So people should be thinking now 3 words, 4 max. Keep it really tight.
And put it on, there's a place on every social media profile where you like have this little introductory sentence, right? And that's where people do stupid things like they say, master of the universe, or what other stupid ones are there? I mean, a lot of them are just bragging.
Most of them are trying hard, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. Exactly.
And it's obvious to us humans.
So I think that's where you put, why do you exist? I exist. I, Guy Kawasaki, exist to empower people.
Right. Now I'm thinking about mine, but I'll get over that later.
Okay.
We already covered the volume of posting on social media, and it's nice to hear you say it, that you want to err on the big side. And in the book, you kind of give some rough ideas. I think it's like 25 tweets a day and certain Facebook posts a day, and you've run the numbers. And so it's interesting to see how you set that up, and you talk about buffer and all of those different ways. But you also say, be valuable and be interesting. I mean, when it comes to curating, what's your guideline for what people should do? Or a lot of people don't even know they should curate.
Well, so first of all, you should curate because it is too damn hard to create, right? If in one part of the book I'm telling you should post maybe 25 times a day, I don't expect you to come up with 25 original articles a day, because I can't do that. I can't do 25 a year, much less a day. So you have to curate, and you have to understand that curation is a very valuable service, because there's a lot of information out there, and helping people find it is almost as valuable as writing it itself. So curation is very effective. It's good for everybody. It's good for you because people respect you for finding something they need. It's good for people because you found something they need. And it's good for the source because you're sending them more readers. Everybody is a winner. It's triple bottom line. So I love to curate. And I think the test for curation is, once I share it, will my followers share it to their followers?
Right.
That's a good test.
That's a test.
Right. Because to use a restaurant analogy, so if you go to a restaurant and you eat and you tip the person 10%, that's kind of like socially acceptable. In the US, it's a socially acceptable expectation, really. Now, so that's one level. That means you didn't suck, I didn't hate the food. That's what that means, right? On the other hand, if you tell your friends, my God, I had the best ramen last night at Wagamama. And you tell them, you gotta go eat at Wagamama, you gotta eat at Nobu, or you gotta eat wherever, I don't care, whatever. You are risking your reputation. Because now, if I tell somebody you gotta go to Wagamama, and they go there and they hate it, guy looks like a, jerk, right? So now, I'm risking my reputation when I tell you to eat at Wagamama. I'm risking my reputation when I send a post out that Guy originally posted. And so if you are willing, if I post a story and you're willing to share with your followers, it means that you're betting on my taste. And so my taste better be good.
That's the metric to track, not the likes. It's the shares.
It's the reshares.
Right.
I think a like is like tipping the valet $1.
Dude, when I get favorites on Twitter, they drive me crazy. I'd rather just don't do it.
Yeah. Well, no, but favorites are but those are the people who are going to see more of your posts, right? You mean a like or a favorite?
No, when they favorite your tweet, or they.
+1
or it's just like they kind of put that little orange star on there.
Yeah,
so no one knows they did it. They were just like saying, "Oh, thanks."
Well, I think that's like tipping the valet $1,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
but when they take your posts or your curation and they reshare it, that's when you know they really liked it, right?
Okay. So
that's why if you look at even the most popular articles, it has I don't know, 200 comments, 500 pluses, and 50 reshares, right? I mean, and the most valuable one is the reshare.
Okay.
Because anybody can say, yeah, I like that.
Right.
But how many say, hey, I'm going to tell everybody I like that? That's a big difference.
So share first metric, comment the next metric, and then the like?
I don't know. After share, it's two-way tie for second. I don't know.
It goes down the tubes.
Yeah.
The Fortune 500 companies right now, what percentage of them are doing this right?
0.
Really? You said Cadbury.
Well, first of all, who am I to judge right or wrong, right?
I think you're okay to judge.
But, well, I don't know if they're doing it right or wrong, but I don't think they're using it optimally. They could do more. And one of the reasons that they don't do more is because they are, with social media, you can either have an attitude of, I'm going to maximize my return or I'm going to minimize my loss. And I think many large brands, they're in the minimize my loss thing, right? So they don't ever want to piss anybody off. They don't ever want to have a faux pas. They don't ever want to do anything wrong. Because, you know, if 5 people say you suck and 5,000 people are silent but like what you do, you're more worried about the 5 people who publicly said you suck, because you think, oh, if 5 people said it, you know, really maybe 5,000 people believe that, but they didn't bother to say it. And I got to tell you, I just don't believe that. That in this day and age of social media, if somebody thinks you suck, you're going to know.
Right. So they need to be less conservative and just be open to the fact that, that this is the new way of doing business.
And like, you know, even if you, let's say you do make a terrible mistake, you know, I could pretty much guarantee you, because there's so much action, in 30, 40 days, no one's going to remember. Like, if you went to most people and said, okay, which airline is the airline that had a viral song about breaking guitars? Okay? Obviously, it's United. How many people do you think remember it was United?
I didn't know.
Okay, and, you know, I did. I knew it was United. I still fly United.
Right.
So, you know, so that's one example. Another example is, you know, Microsoft CEO makes this huge faux pas, and, you know, somebody asked him a question about how women should get promoted, and he said, you know, depend on karma, right? Like, if you sat there and said, okay, what's the most dumbass thing you could say? That'd be right up there, right? Okay, so now that was 60 days ago.
I love how you give it to a straight guy.
So 60 days later, most people won't remember. You know, who was it? Was CEO of, was it Microsoft or Southwest Airlines?
He was brand new, so that one will stick with him for a little while.
But I mean, the point is, almost in the sense, the minute you press send, things are decaying.
Right.
Right? So, do you think a year from now, if that guy at Microsoft is successful, you think they're going to hold that against him? They're not going to remember. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Right. And it's
really
definitely not going to affect the brand, right?
No.
Right. It might affect his personal brand a little bit. But even that'll decay.
Well, if he fails at Microsoft, it's going to be one of the nails in the coffin, right? But even if he didn't do that and he failed at Microsoft, he's still dead.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm not saying you should be flippant and, you know, do all that, but I do stuff. Okay, so I was in Oslo this week, right?
Yeah.
And so I go to this dinner with the people who are hosting the speech. This is their CEO executive team. And they know I love sushi. So they send out for sushi from the best sushi place in I think the world, Alex Sushi. And one of the courses is whale. Okay? So I take a picture of whale sushi, okay? And people are freaking out. You know, guy is a whale killer, right? Doesn't matter that this species of whale is not endangered, you know. It doesn't matter that, you know, they eat chicken and beef 3 meals a day, but, you know, like, there's a picture of whale sushi. So how many people? I have 10 million followers, if you count everything up. How many followers do you think I lost that day? You know, like 100. Well, I'll tell you a very interesting thing. So roughly 75 people said, you know, whale killer, how dare you, endangered species, I'm never going to follow you, you've lost credibility, you know, blah, blah, blah.
75% right? Of the comments were that.
No. 75 people.
People, right.
So of 10 million, 75 said that. Of course, that's kind of not fair, because you're assuming that 10 million saw it, right? But it's not true at all, right? But anyway.
What is that, 2% of those?
Yeah,
5%
if
of those?
that,
If
yeah.
that, okay.
So anyway, so 75 angry people. But then I looked at the pluses and the likes for that picture, and it was like 220 or 250. So I translate this, so you're telling me that 75 people were really pissed off, but yet 250 people plus one or liked the picture. So does that mean 250 people like killing whales and eating them? Because if you hated the concept that there was whale sushi, you would not +1 the picture, right? So somehow, like, what is the world telling you? There are 75 people telling you, you're a killer of whales. But 250 people liked the picture. Maybe they liked it because, guy, interesting food, or, guy, you're showing me something I never would have seen before, whale sushi. I don't know what it is. But somehow, 3 to 1 liked the picture.
Right. So it was
Wrap
the right
your
thing
mind
to do.
around that. What does that mean?
Well, one of your rules is polarize people, so that's exactly what you did with that.
Yeah, but I can't tell you that I'm intentionally trying to piss people off. I mean, that's kind of stupid too. But before I posted, I knew it would have that effect. I'm not afraid of that. And I don't know if you're aware, but in the United States, there's let's just say there's an organization who believes that every American should have an automatic weapon with 30 bullet clip. Okay, and I can't wrap my mind around that. And they say it's because of the Second Amendment. All of a sudden, all these guys are like constitutional law experts. Holy cow! When did that happen?
Is this the NRA, perhaps?
Yeah,
okay.
Perhaps. Okay, so now everybody has to have and their thinking is, well, the Second Amendment was put into place because every American needs a gun in case the government becomes like this evil thing, and they have to defend themselves against the government, right? So maybe in 1776, if you had a musket, you could defend yourself against, I don't know, whoever was president back there. But 2015, okay, so now let's say Barack Obama goes crazy, right? Barack Obama goes crazy, he goes rogue, and you anti-Barack Obama, you're anti-government. So you got your shotgun. You went to Walmart and you bought your shotgun, okay? But Barack Obama goes rogue and he sends SEAL Team 6 to get you. And you're sitting there watching Monday Night Football and you got your shotgun with 30, let's say it's not even a shotgun. Let's say it's an automatic weapon with 30, several clips of 30 bullets. And you're going to defend your freedom against SEAL Team 6 because Barack Obama went crazy. This I got to see. Right.
So what's the point you're making?
The point I'm making is, I post this kind of stuff where I just see lunacy.
Okay.
When there's shootings in schools, the NRA says the solution is buy more guns for teachers. Like, how can you wrap your mind? You just had a shooting at a school, and you're saying, well, if those teachers had guns, when they saw that shooter come in, they would put down their arithmetic 1 book and they would whip out their pistol and they would plug the guy, right? I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, I don't think I could shoot a person. So their solution is we got to give teachers guns.
Right.
And so when I read a story like that, I cannot not post that.
Right.
It's and then trust me when I tell you, man, if you think you polarize people for saying whale sushi, you should see. You should see what happens when you say, maybe not every American needs an automatic weapon with 30 bullets in it, because, it's unlikely that this herd of deer are going to attack you, so you need an automatic weapon when you're hunting.
Well, this brings a good question. I mean, is this all magnified by social media to a certain extent? I mean, there's this culture in the States now where it's like everybody wants to shame these people that post these bad things, and then they have to repent, and then they are accepted, and it happens at lightning speed. Things are taken out of context.
I don't see a lot of repentance.
Okay, fair enough. But I mean, this is your business, social media, and it kind of accelerates some of this behavior, right?
It's a complex guy, right? So some of it is, I'm 60 years old now, and I got to tell you, when you get to be 60, you're not 60, right?
No.
So you don't know
Jesus,
this yet.
guy.
Right? But when you get to be 60, you'll understand that you just don't give a shit. Really, you just don't give a shit.
Right, just like Grandpa used to, just not give a shit.
I'm not saying you should be senile and not give a shit. I'm just saying, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
It's a comfortable feeling. It's
yeah.
It's not.
Right. It's not. I'm not saying it's arrogant. I'm not saying it's just what are you going to do?
Right. This is a good point. And I wanted to ask you about this. I'm not 60 yet. I'm turning 44 this year, but thank you for thinking I was 60. Let's talk about ageism in the Valley. And I had heard the other day that people in their 30s now are going for Botox so they can make sure they're invited into these, startups, and everyone's super sensitive about you if you're not in the 20s or 30s. Well, you hear these articles, probably posted on social media.
So then it's true.
Yeah. But I mean, you're prolific, you're speaking a lot, and you're turning 60. I mean, someone in their 30s and 40s, do they have a harder time in Silicon Valley? I mean, especially if you're talking to young kids that are doing doing startups, 23,
You know,
24 years old. When I was that age, I thought anyone over 30 had no idea what was going on with their lives.
I know.
I bet you did too when you were 21. You were like,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't even talk to someone that was 30.
Right. So I understand that. I think that's just a phenomenon everywhere. I don't think it's just a valley, right?
It might be accelerated a bit in the valley.
Yeah, it might be accelerated in the valley, but I can't tell you of a situation where I thought that I was being locked out, pushed out, or whatever because of my age.
Okay. What about any of your peers? I mean, you're kind of an outlier.
Yeah, I'm beginning to see some of my peers are, they're like 50, 60, and so they can't get this, when you're 50 or 60, people expect you to be a vice president or something, right? So, if you're willing to start as a, not trainee, but, like individual contributor, people wonder,
How many 50-year-olds are at WhatsApp, for example? I bet it's none.
Yeah, well, Dropbox, it's probably the same, right?
Yeah.
Well, but they had hired Dennis Woodside, so that's one. Probably, but at some point, I think they realize that maybe a 50-year-old person or 60-year-old person can add value.
Right, or if they haven't done something by then, they're not going to add new value.
Well,
like you said, they should be a VP. Why aren't you a VP?
But that's, you know what, but I got to tell you, I don't believe that's fair to people, because that's making a judgment that winners are VPs, but I don't think that's true. I think that, if you decided when you were 30 to 50 to focus on your family at the sacrifice of your career, and now you're 50 and an empty nester and you want to get back into your career, what's wrong with that?
Right. You're saying that now. And maybe 20 years ago, you might not have felt that way. I don't know.
I guarantee you I didn't feel that way.
You didn't feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Because when I asked you kind of what's next for you, and you were talking about, well, you got 2 young kids and you want to make sure they grow up, and like that's on your mind now, right?
Yeah. More so than anything else. I have 4 young kids. So, I have 2 young ones and 2 old ones.
2 are in college, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's on your mind more now.
Yeah. I don't want to be a CEO.
Right.
I don't want to start a company right now.
Right. You're over that.
And at 60, well, I'm 60 with a 9-year-old kid, see. So my plan is he graduates and I die the next day.
Graduates high school or college?
Either one.
A PhD will keep you alive.
I'll be happy either one.
And do they keep you young? Like a young kid that young? Do they keep you moving around, keep you thinking all the time?
Well, yeah, in a sense I have a grandson.
Right. Okay. But it's all good though.
Yeah.
It's
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't even, because the first 2, you're kind of like, you don't know what you're doing, right? So now, by the 3rd and 4th, you know what you're doing, and you can enjoy it because you're not so worried about it.
Yeah, Michael Douglas said the same thing because he had kids when he was an up-and-coming actor, and one of his first kids is in jail, for dealing drugs or something crazy. And Michael was like, I was concentrated on my career as a movie star. And then he had kids with Catherine Zeta-Jones, and he's like, now I'm more like the grandpa, and now everything's about the kid, and I can take time, and I have time, and it's like 2 different dads.
This I gotta see.
Yeah, this I gotta see. Let me talk about some more of your mantras that you covered, and I guess they are your mantras that you covered in your TED Talk. VCs aren't your friends. I love that line. Is that something that goes over well when you say it, or does everyone really know you're telling the truth?
Well, I don't say it in a VC meeting, right. But I think generally, the VC business is a strange business because you convince people to give you their money. Well, not give, to invest their money in you. They're going to pay 2.5% a year for you to manage it. So sort of your baseline just for showing up and not being a criminal is $500,000 a year. And then if you really do it right, you can make 10, 20, 50 million a year. Whoa, what a freaking great job, right? $500,000 base just for showing up, just for saying no 99% of the time.
And you used to be a VC, so you know this.
So now I know how bad I was.
So you're telling me it's a racket.
It is a racket.
Okay.
It is a racket.
And it's rigged.
I don't know if it's rigged.
Is the 2 and 20 by definition a racket?
Well, it's
people
not,
look at that 50
well,
years.
It's not a racket in the sense it's rigged. It's just that people have to appreciate the role of luck. in that. Now, Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia, they're lucky all the time. So, you have to give them something, right?
Right.
But the longer I stayed in it, the more I thought, wow, you just got to get lucky. You get lucky and you declare victory and you say you knew.
Right. And then you put those lucky companies on your Twitter profile. And everyone's like, wow.
Right.
You don't list the other 97.
Yeah. Like, the same company that created Google funded Webvan. Let me think about that. Wrap your mind around that. Like, go look at who funded Boo. Right. So I tell you, a lot of it is just luck. So I'm convinced now that it's better to be lucky than smart.
Okay. And this point about VCs not being your friends, I think it was advice to startups that when they go, the thing is, I've had a lot of VCs in for my Silicon Reel program. We just had the guy from Excel here in Europe around $2 billion. And, I said to him, I mean, to you, people think these VCs are these like mythical creatures up on the hill and
with knowledge.
All these green startups are like, if you just call us back, we think it's great. And you want to put money in whatever you want. You can have board seats, you can have all this stuff. And ultimately, that's a little too much to be giving over to them. And then they're not your friends. Like you said, they want you to hit your sales figures.
Right.
That's it.
That's all.
They don't want to hear your excuses. Yeah. And as a CEO, you get one warning, maybe 1.5.
And then you're out. Yeah.
And then you don't understand.
They're not your friend.
They're not your friend, right.
People should understand that. Now, this is not to say that they're all evil and they're not friendly. But, just remember, I was going to use a prostitution analogy, but...
That'll be like whale sushi.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, you want to leave that? Or you want to give it to me?
Let's just leave that.
Okay.
I need some followers.
You used to sell jewelry, and you said you learned a lot about sales in that business because you said it was hard. You said the jewelry business was harder than the hardware business, right? Computer business. Why is it harder, and what did you learn?
The jewelry business is hard because at some level, everything is generic. I mean, 18 karat gold was 18 karat gold.
Right.
And, diamonds have cut and clarity and color and all that. But at some level, if you have a half carat round VVS stone, that's, G color, that's what it is. So then you have to sell on quality and design and, service and all that. And trust. So it's very personal selling. Whereas computers, you go to Best Buy, you buy the computer, you walk out, right? I think it's harder. So I really learned how to sell in the jewelry business.
Okay.
Fantastic training for the rest of my life.
Make connections, build rapport, all that.
Trust.
Right.
And honor and all that kind of stuff.
Because you can't rely on you having a better product, right? So then you have to differentiate.
Well, even if you had a better product, somebody could see your ring and copy it. And, it's not that hard. It's much easier to copy a ring than to copy the Macintosh interface.
Right. Speaking of Macintosh, when you talk about 83 to 87, it's people don't remember what Apple was like back then, and
well,
it's nice
some of them weren't alive yet, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, that too. And you said Apple should have died 10 times, and it's like a lot of the young kids don't realize that. Yeah. They don't know a lot of the history. They don't know that the Mac division you were in was the loss leader, and the Apple II Pluses were making the money, right? Yeah. And so I was wondering if you could tell us. You said it was not a higher concentration of egomaniacs in the country. I mean, what was it like back then?
We were the handpicked children of Steve Jobs, and it was utterly fantastic.
Because he hired like opera people and all these weird disciplines, right?
He didn't care what your background was. You either were good or not, and it was fantastic. I did the best work there, and he got the most out of people, and we lived in fear of him. And, everything you heard about HR, we did in reverse. And we thought we were on a mission to change the world, and by golly, we did. Although we never got the 90% market share, right?
And you were going for that.
Obviously, yeah. We thought we had total worldwide. Every computer in the world would be a Macintosh.
Right.
Come to find out, we were only 90 points off.
And was Steve harder back then? Was he tougher? Did he calm down over time? Or
I don't remember a calm time with Steve Jobs. He was what he was, right? And I've come to the conclusion that people like Steve Jobs, they're on a different operating system. It's like, you're a fish and he's a bird. Try to explain water to a bird or flying to a fish. Different operating system. I don't think a mere mortal could understand Steve Jobs, because I can't. That's for sure. He just had a different operating system.
And what qualities would that show up in?
Design, aesthetic, motivating people, dealing with people. I could never deal with people the way he dealt with people. And he did it, and he got, I many years after I left Apple, I have friends who are still there. And I said, why do you keep working at Apple? Because you can't make the millions you could before. And you know that, let's say you are in trade shows, okay? And you know that, Steve could just walk into Macworld Expo one day and look at that booth and say, this booth is a piece of shit. Why are you even working here? Who hired you? You piece of crap. This is, because that counter is 2 inches too low. And that trash can under the counter, it's not the right shade of black. And there's the seam between those 2 panels in our booth. I can see the seam. I don't want to see the seam. That is crap, okay? And like right there, you could get fired. You live in fear like that, right? So why do you do that? He goes, because at Apple you can do the best work of your life. Because there are so few people who would see the seam. Because maybe Steve is right, or would say, you're right, that counter is 2 inches too low, or that trash can is ugly. It looks like we bought it at Target, and this is supposed to be the freaking Apple booth. It's not supposed to have a Target-looking. Target people are gonna be pissed off with me. Target-looking thing, right? So that's why, because people could do. Working for most people, they're incapable of telling you that. So imagine if you were working for HP. So HP used to make like the butt ugliest digital cameras. Like if you sat down and said, okay, let's make the worst looking digital camera. Let's tell people we were inspired by bricks. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? HP had infinite money. Why did they hire a Jonathan Ive who made a beautiful, thin, camera, right? Why did they make a big, thick, ugly plastic camera, right? And I think at some level it's because you knew, or maybe you didn't know, you didn't consciously think this way, but nobody ever said this looks like crap, because they didn't have the ability to judge. They didn't know it looked like crap, which is even more scary. If it looked like crap and you didn't tell people, at least you knew, right? But you looked at it and said, looks like a fine camera. Ship it. That's the scary part. So that's why people work for Apple.
All right, so he raises everyone's game because they know every detail will be criticized.
Yes.
And so it's a stressful place to work because you have to be on your game 24/7, but you do your best work there. Did you do your best work there?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what do you think of them now? Is the iWatch going to be everywhere? Is it a completely different entity now? Or does it have traces of Jobs?
I've never seen the iWatch physically. Shouldn't it be out by now? I mean, it's coming, right?
It's supposed to be this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to say that it looks a little too big and thick to me. Okay, so this watch, you'll love this story. So this is a smartwatch, believe it or not.
Is it really? Okay.
Yes,
all right.
yes. Doesn't look like a smartwatch. It looks like a, Patek Philippe or something,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this watch is a Withings Activité. And there's only one hand over there that tracks, what part of 10,000 steps are you at. You sync it up to your phone and it downloads the steps. And, it also tells you how many hours you slept, because I guess, when you sleep, you're not moving your hand, or I don't know, however it does it.
Right.
And it's waterproof, right? And the battery, this watch's battery lasts 8 months, which is roughly 239 days longer than any other smartwatch battery, right? And so I love this watch. And this is, if you looked at this watch and you look at Apple's watches, okay, so Apple's watch is thick, looks like a smartwatch. And with Apple's track record in batteries, by noon you better be done with everything in your day. And I look at this watch, it's thin, it lasts 8 months. Doesn't, I'm not gonna get text messages over there. I'm not gonna be like looking at songs. I'm not gonna get notification. I get a lot of things, but it tells time, counts steps, tells me how I sleep. Well,
got it.
It lasts 8 months. Hallelujah, man.
I personally don't need another device that's going to take away the attention of someone I'm trying to have a conversation with, let alone a little kid, let alone any adult. I mean, I ban phones from my conversations, and let alone someone's going to be doing this while I'm talking to them. I can't imagine that.
What if it's beeping?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, what if your wristwatch is beeping all the time? I mean, it's not like you have a, introverted looking watch there, buddy.
Yeah.
I got to tell you.
It's an old school, Swiss thing that
is
knocks
it?
into people. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing smart about this. Well, I guess the technology is kind of smart. The Swiss watchmaking is pretty fascinating, but we'll get at it. You mentioned that when you were at Apple that Microsoft, your kind of aha moment was when the Windows outsold Macintosh, even though you had a better product, and like that whole experience was strange for you. Like you said, you thought
still trying to get over it.
Still trying to get over that. Have you pieced that together? Did you ever come to a conclusion there?
I read an intellectual explanation that said that if you were an MS-DOS user and you were comfortable with Microsoft, and Microsoft, your suppliers, said, now we're going to graphical user interface, you were comfortable with that, which is very different than saying, I'm going to switch from Microsoft vendor to Apple vendor. That was uncomfortable. That's the best explanation I can find. Either that or people are stupid. There's only two possibilities.
Okay. And something you mentioned in your TEDx talk that you said, I think churn baby churn was the mantra as far as like keep changing and improving your product. But you said the Mac didn't succeed for any of the reasons you hoped it would. It wasn't succeeding from your spreadsheets or anything else.
It was desktop publishing.
It was desktop publishing, which you never saw coming, but you guys went with that.
Yeah. Thank God for desktop publishing.
Right. And so do you try to encourage people to think about that with their products?
Yes. I tell them, take your best shot at branding and positioning and all that, but then put it out there. And then if you see a group of people who embrace it and use it, freaking declare victory, man. Hallelujah. Say, yeah, we designed it for you. Because it's so hard. Most likely, you're going to get totally rejected by everybody, right? So if you find some, small population of the world who love what you do, take it, man.
Right.
Take it.
What's the valley like these days? I mean, do you see madness when you look around the value? Do you see, valuations getting crazy? Do you see?
Okay, so here's my attitude on that. Okay. So yeah, at any given point, you can always say it's a bubble, right? I mean, and you'd be right, 75% of the time. And you could say, when I was an entrepreneur, we really had product. We had, we had software, and we wrote manuals, and we shrink wrapped it. And, those were the good old days, when quality mattered and, we cared about that, right? But my observation is that basically every 50 or 60-year-old person ever says that about his career or her career, right? So someday Mark Zuckerberg, is going to be 50 years old. He's going to say, man, when I was an entrepreneur, we had value. We had like real servers. We had real, we had security, we had policy, we had privacy, we had this, we had that, we had this, and you could go to one place and you knew you could read Facebook's terms of service. And these kids these days, you don't know where their servers are. You don't know who they are. You don't know what kind of currency they're using. You don't know what's happening with your privacy. What happened to the good old days of Facebook? It's kind of like music, I think, because every 50 or 60-year-old says, my teenagers listen to shit. Like, what kind of noise? It's like the rap, right? But I guarantee you that somebody, like right now, we look at Michael Jackson who said that was a class act. That was a classic. That guy had talent. And we look at Justin Bieber and say, that guy is a manufactured, piece of crap, right? But I got to tell you, look, I guarantee you, 40 years from now, I'm going to say, what happened to the really talented people like Justin Bieber? Yeah. That guy could sing, right? That guy could dance. Do you think that if you were 60 years old when Elvis came out, do you think you said, wow, this is the future of music? You said, what kind of gyration, sexual, depravity is this? What happened to Duke Ellington? What happened to, that? Now we're Elvis Presley. And now what? Elvis Presley is a classic, right? So Michael Jackson became classic. Elvis Presley became classic. I'm telling you, Justin Bieber will someday be viewed as classic. Oldie and goldie.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, I guarantee you that'll happen. So I think to change this metaphor back to what we're discussing, because, every 50 or 60-year-old says, we're in a bubble. They don't really have value like when I did it. It's bullshit. I mean, it really is bullshit.
You see this with presidents all the time. I remember the Reagan era, and at the end of his presidency, he was in front of Congress saying, I don't remember, Iran-Contra, all this garbage. It was a horrible time. And then like 15 years later, they start, the Republican convention, they're like, the Reagan, we're the Reagan types.
Right.
You see it, with the reevaluating of the older Bush, and we'll see it in another 10 years. People will say that the younger Bush was doing some great stuff back then.
Yeah.
I guess that's us as humans.
But not to say, but like Jimmy Carter, the longer he was not president, the better he was, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, it really may be true that he blossomed post-presidency. But I think it's a function of when you get old, like today people say, well, what happened to the family values of the 50s, like the way they remember it in the 50s, everybody came and they said grace holding hands, they ate dinner together, and then they went into the other room and they played board games. Okay? Not anymore. Everybody's on their freaking phone right now if they're eating together. And as soon as the thing's over, one's at the TiVo, one's at YouTube, one's at there's no family life. What happened to that quality family time, right?
This is your house you're describing.
Yeah, exactly, right. So now, I bet you if you went back into the 50s, I don't think it was that hunky-dory. I don't think every family was eating family dinner. I don't think they were playing board games after dinner.
Right.
That's
right. That's
like
just it.
Most likely your father came home drunk from, right. His factory, right? And
like Mad Men, they were smoking.
Right. And they were screwing each other and all that. But no, those are the good old days, right? So at any point.
What's a hobby or a habit that about you that we wouldn't know? Is there something you do in your spare time?
I'm kind of an open book. I don't have like any fetishes or anything you don't know about. I happen to love hockey. Not everybody knows that. I love hockey.
Okay. You play ice hockey?
How did
you do that? You're from Honolulu and you went to school in California.
I took up hockey because my two boys took up hockey.
Okay, older boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
it's a contact sport.
Not on purpose.
Okay.
And I just loved it. So I've been playing hockey about 11 or 12 years. 12 years because I started at 48.
You got a slap shot?
Oh, yeah. So let's just say that 48 is a little late to start learning how to skate. It's not optimal.
Okay, but you can skate.
I can skate. Not great, but, I could tell you that I probably am the best 60-year-old person from Hawaii playing hockey in the Bay Area. How's that for a niche?
That's pretty good. I could skate, but I couldn't control a puck to save my life.
So that's my passion. I love hockey. In a perfect world, I would just play hockey and be with my kids. That's all I want to do.
Okay. And your older kids what are you learning by watching them go through university? You got one at Berkeley, right?
Yeah, one at Berkeley, one at UCLA.
Was it remind you of when you were there, when you hear their stories, or is it a different kind of world?
Well, getting back to, maybe we're pounding a dead horse here, but now, I look at them, I say, when I was in college, man, I was really working hard and I earned it and I met with my professors and I got to know them. I got value out of it and I worked and I got internships and I really, I'm remembering my college because that was the good old days, right? I'm looking at these punks, how they're doing college, right? Someday, and I told both boys, I said, someday, man, God works in funny ways. He's going to give you the kids that you were. So everything you're doing to me now, your kid's gonna do to you. And they laugh. They think it's funny. They don't know. It's true.
It's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
You should write a book on selective memory. That could be your next book. That could be your next one. What is next for you after this? I know you're constantly working on new books.
Yeah.
And that
So
kind of thing.
10 years ago, I wrote a book called The Art of the Start.
Right.
Right. And 10 years ago, there was no crowdfunding, there was no crowdsourcing, there was no social media, there was, you bought servers, you had to write a business plan. So all this stuff is different. So I basically rewrote Art of the Start. So Art of the Start 2.0 is coming out in March.
Fantastic.
So I have 2 new books, so March and December. So 3 months apart. Not optimal, let me tell you. So I have 2 books in 3 months.
Right, you're touring. I was reading through this book, and you're constantly referencing, LinkedIn and Google Plus and all that. And I was thinking, in 2 years, you're going to need to rewrite this.
I know.
As well, because everything's changing fast. But in a good sense, you're giving super practical advice that matters today. Because you're like, do this, this, and this.
There's some stuff in
There's a
there,
balance.
like the elements of style for writing, right? Like, I can't imagine that. Like right now, I'm saying, for example, a good avatar is, focus, front, and all the stuff I said, right? I can't imagine that in 5 years, people are going to say, well, a good avatar today is out of focus, poorly lit,
Right.
Some things are going to stay the same.
Right.
So
what's your read on video? I just want to finish up with that. I mean, obviously,
on video?
Yeah, we see obviously the autoplay and Facebook, and it's just becoming everywhere in our lives. And as humans, we react to it much differently than.
Well, one tip I learned is you should upload your video natively to Facebook.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't like.
We do that all the time.
Do YouTube, right?
Embeds, we don't do that anymore. Yeah.
So that,
and it doesn't
not
autoplay.
everybody's figured that out.
Okay.
That's number one.
Right.
But like the shining example that I hold up is a guy named Marquez Brownlee. So this 19 or 20-year-old, I think he's like senior in college, and he started reviewing phones. And now, I know you think you're hot shit with 80,000 followers. This 20-year-old kid out of his dorm has 2 million followers.
This is the guy that was sanding the iPhone front and checking the hardness of the covers. And I think I might know this guy.
All right.
It says a lot there.
You should look him up.
Okay,
Marquez Brownlee.
Right.
And
you're shaming me here publicly.
yeah, I am.
With my numbers.
So it seems to me that like there's a generation of people who, if you wanted to know how to roast a turkey, you'd go to YouTube. I'm telling you now, or excuse me, I said that wrong. So there's a generation that if you wanted to learn how to roast a turkey, you'd go to Google, right? And then I think now, maybe even as a first act, they go to YouTube and they search how to roast a turkey, which is very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because you'd think that YouTube is a subset of Google, so you'd go to Google and find the articles as well as the video. But I think, these kids, they go and they just go to YouTube to how to roast a turkey. Yeah. And then there's a whole nother thing, like people go to Pinterest and search for how to roast a turkey. Knock me over with a feather. It never occurred to me to go to Pinterest to learn something.
You might get some curation there.
Yeah, like some nice dresses or something,
right? So you're even being surprised by different social media platforms.
Every day. And so with YouTube, here's an interesting, thought. So let's say you have a new camera, new gizmo, and you have a choice. Either the Wall Street Journal can review it with, I don't know how many, 1 million people read the paper version and 10 million subscribers, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So Wall Street Journal could review it, or you could get Marquez Brownlee, 20-year-old kid in college, to review it to his 2 million YouTube subscribers. Which would you prefer? That's a real interesting question. I got to tell you, I would pick Marquez Brownlee today.
That's some David and Goliath shit right there.
I really would. Yeah, I think if he said, buy this camera, I think that is more powerful than the Wall Street Journal saying, buy this camera.
That's an inflection point.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue that way,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, we're right now being watched on YouTube. People have talked about YouTube. It obviously owns the space that it's in a huge way. But as an entity, I don't even know if anyone agrees that it's a profitable entity. I know they're trying to, incorporate intelligent advertising. Most people say it hasn't worked. Where do you see that going as an entity in the future of video? Because they kind of own video right now.
Well, all I can tell you is that, obviously there's the entertainment value, but there's a real value in when you want to learn how to do something, people are going to YouTube. I think if my college sons, 8 sons, if they wanted to learn how to change a flat tire, which they might not know, okay? Seriously, because what they do called AAA.
Bad father, if you
I am a bad father. If they wanted to learn how to change a flat tire, I bet you they go to YouTube. That's very interesting.
Right, and 10 years ago they wouldn't have. So now I'll ask you, in 10 years from now, what are people going to be doing when it comes to something like that? Is it still going to be YouTube? It would be silly to think that it still would be.
Maybe they have Google Glass, and they'll just say to their glasses, show me how to change a tire, and boom, up in front of your eye is... I've never used Google Glass, but... I
used it once. One of the guys from Google came over here, and I put them on, and then I sent out a picture, and I said, look, I'm a glass hole.
Yeah.
And then I don't think he was very happy about that. So, no, it was an interesting tech with the noise, with the feedback on the audio and the slide, but it's not there yet. It's missing some kind of
for me,
app store, I guess.
The killer app for Google Glass, for an old person like me, is I want to have Google Glass so that... Like I just spoke in Oslo and Zurich, right? So I met, several hundred people. I can't remember any of their names. But if I could just have,
face recognition and boom.
If I could just, 6 months from now, Google Glasses, you met this guy in Oslo, CTO of, the company I was working there was Kongsberg, CTO of Kongsberg. You met with him January 2015 in Oslo, and after that you went and ate whale sushi with him. Okay, if Google Glass could tell me to show that or put it in my ear, so I could say, hey, Jan, good to see you, man. Shall we go have sushi again? Yeah. Can you believe that? Let's go cut up some whale, right?
Yeah.
He'd be so impressed. Of course, if he knew how I did it, he wouldn't be impressed. But for a while, man, that's the killer app for me. I would love to have that.
That would be perfect. Like an email trail, but visually and in your
exactly.
brain. So, yeah. Guy, I always ask people a couple questions right at the end.
Okay.
And I'm going to hit you with them. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Guy Kawasaki and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him?
Stay at Apple.
Why'd you leave?
Well, first time to start a company, second time to start a company, because I thought Apple was tapped out. So yeah, if I had stayed at Apple either time, I would not be in this room right now.
Where would you be?
Not here. I mean,
well,
I don't
what's
know.
wrong with this place?
South of France. I don't know. Hawaii. I would be retired, man.
You would be richer, is that what you're saying?
I'd own the San Jose Sharks. I don't know what. But yeah. So.
Okay. All right.
Okay. What's the other question?
Best advice you've ever received, business or personal? Maybe we'll go personal.
Best advice I ever received.
Any good Hawaiian advice?
Yeah, no. Is don't ask people to do something you wouldn't do. Of course, this assumes you're not a psychopath, but assuming you're not a psychopath, like if you wouldn't fill out that reg form, don't ask people to fill out a reg form. If you wouldn't fly coach to Bangalore, don't ask people to fly coach to Bangalore. Okay. It's a very good practice for dealing with customers, vendors, and employees. Yeah.
Okay. Good test. Last question, to the 20-year-old that's listening to us from somewhere around the world, that wants to one day be an evangelist at some company. Yeah. What do you tell them to do? Okay,
so this is called Guy's Golden Touch.
Here we go.
Okay, so Guy's Golden Touch is not whatever I touch turns to gold. Man, I wish that was true. Guy's Golden Touch is whatever is gold Guy touches. So this is my advice. If you want to be an evangelist, find or create something that is truly great, because it is really easy to evangelize something great. It is really hard to evangelize crap. So the key to evangelism is align yourself with great stuff.
That is good advice.
To give you an analogy, there's a saying that The difference between a good photographer and a bad photographer is that the good photographer doesn't show you his bad shots. So you could apply that to evangelism. I'm not going to tell you about the stuff that failed. I'm only going to tell you, hey, I evangelized back
as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Guy, thank you so much for the time. The book is The Art of Social Media. We're actually going to be sending out 5 signed copies to people, sending out the best quote of this episode.
Yeah.
There's
Seriously, people need to figure out that social media equals marketing for most entrepreneurs. If you're Nike, okay, you need advertising, you need sponsorship, you're going to sponsor the World Games, you're going to whatever, right? But if you're a small business or a new business, social media equals marketing. It's not an experiment. It's not something you do on the side when marketing is done and everything. It is your marketing. So you need to man up and understand that, and you need to, master social media if you want to be successful, because it's the best thing that ever happened to marketing. It's fast, it's free, and ubiquitous. You cannot say that about any other kind of marketing. It is marketing for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and there's no excuse. This thing will take you about an hour and a half to go through, and if you have a stupid profile picture that looks like a mugshot in the next 6 months, then shame on you. Because I was reading through this, and I'm sending this to all my guys, and because a lot of you were confirming what I said, and so I'm having them all read it because it's silly not to, And the shame is a lot of people aren't going to read your book until a year or two now, and that's going to be ancient times. So check that out, and your next book is coming up in March as well.
March, yeah. Art of the Start 2.0.
Art of the Start 2.0. Fantastic. Follow Guy on Twitter, and you can watch how to tweet. Guy's a master, 125,000 tweets. It's a phenomenon. It's inspiring, and Facebook, etc. If you're an ice hockey fan as well, you can hit him up. And thanks so much for being here. We say on London Real, it's about the journey. I wish you well in yours, Guy. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for being part of my journey too now.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.
This week on London Real, we have the investor, entrepreneur, and aspiring Renaissance man, Ty Lopez.
It's a rare life that's just bathed in opportunity all the way. Most of us just get a few chances. If you're at a room playing poker and after 30 minutes you don't know who the sucker is, you're the sucker. What is it going to take me to live the good life? What's it going to take me to find health, wealth, love, and happiness? And I say, well, start, much simpler question, what will make you not get the good life? People want the gimmick. They want the lottery ticket versus sculpture. Make your life a sculpture. Every day you chip away. Opportunistic approach is a fool's game. You find the thing that's I call it Eulerian destiny. It's a mathematical term. Where's the intersection of 5 major areas in your life? Whenever people try to tell me about maximizing vacation and minimizing work, I'm like, oh, I actually know the real problem, my friend. You're doing the wrong thing.
On Sunday, London Real presents Ty Lopez, Live the Good Life.
Nature should be the teacher of last resort because she's a bitch.